What's going on, everybody? I'm Mr. Powers. Today we will be looking at some Dark Souls board game miniatures I painted a while ago. This was the first set of miniatures that I've ever painted. These aren't the best, but I figured I'd just look over them, tell you what I learned, what colors I used, inspire you to use certain colors maybe if you're looking to paint this set, if you've recently gotten the board game. Here I have an Orlando Archer. Let me zoom in. Get a nice... There we go. Here I used Vallejo's Gunmetal Gray on pretty much the entire thing. I went with some light brushing over the bow so you can see all the engravings on it. It looks pretty good. The quality of the miniature is very high quality. For the cape, I used a Gunmetal Blue by Vallejo. Here it is right here. I wanted to just switch things up. I didn't want it to look too ordinary. I wanted to like personalize it. I like the look of the blue. It's kind of like an off gray. You don't really notice it, but it is different. I believe I went with a skin tone wash over it to give it like a dirty look so it wasn't like too shiny. He kind of looks like he's been wearing that armor for a while. It's like not the cleanest armor. Felt it gave it a little personality. Not too bad. Next I have another archer here. I tried to change it up. I wanted the pieces to look different. I don't really like how this guy came out. I went with the Vallejo brass color, and it looks pretty good for the most part, but I went with the red cape. I used war paint pure red for this. It doesn't look the best, as you can tell. My painting skills are not great. Again, this is the first set I ever painted, so you know I was very new to it. And I mean, one of the most important things I learned is just you can't be afraid to paint. You can always wash the paint off. So if you're trying to study painting before you start, you know, just jump right in. The only way you're going to get better is just by doing. So just get in there. Again, I went with the flesh wash over it to give it like a dirty look. I don't remember exactly what wash I used or what brand, but it does give the armor like a dirty look. It's like there's dirt and grime in there, so it looks like he's been wearing it for a while. Again, some personality. I definitely want to repaint this guy, but the brass doesn't look too bad. I think I might go with the gold or something next time. Next we have one of the undead. I used the Vallejo silver for the axe. I used a leather brown for this bit right here, and this part, that doesn't look good at all. Again, one of the first pieces I painted, so I was just learning, trying new stuff. The coat and the pants that he's wearing, I used the old gold. I didn't really know what color to paint it. I thought the leather brown that I have would have looked weird. And honestly, I'm pretty happy with the way the old gold looks. Looks just like some old rags. It's pretty nice. For the skin, I used Warpaint's green skin. It doesn't really match the tone of the other minis that I have in the set, but I like the way it sticks out. It was real easy to get a face look. I didn't have to like do eyes or anything. It looks pretty natural. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I definitely want to redo these browns though. Next, here we go. We have Ornstein. I used the Vallejo gold on him, and again I used a wash to make it look dirty. It came out pretty good, you know, for my first set. I'm not really happy with the color of the hair, or the helmet hair, whatever it is. It doesn't look horrible. But as you can see, it's just not consistent in here. My brushing skills were not great. Yeah, I pretty much just went over gold, the whole thing. And it was pretty easy. It came out pretty well. I really do like it. Something I would do differently is definitely the hair. Maybe go a little shinier on the gold. Less of the wash. Because he does look dirty, which I like, but I don't know. I think he should be shining. Next we have the Anne Orlando Giants. These I used gold on all the trim and the side. I used the gunmetal blue for the main part here. And for the armor, I just went with the silver. There's some very nice detail in the weapon and the giant axe. I should have used a little bit less paint when painting it, but it did come out pretty good. I do like the way it looks. You know, the face, I could use less paint on the face. It's kind of muddied there. I used way too much. I kind of just globbed it on. And my the stroking on the shield, the way I painted it, it kind of looks weird. It's not the best focus. Here we go. There we go. You can see it's not perfect. You know, I messed up. But, you know, my first set. So, it came out alright for being my first set. Again, just gold and silver and the gunmetal blue. Move on. Alright. Next we have the Anne Orlando Knight. I went with the gunmetal gray and the gunmetal blue to match the archer. And just went over everything. It's not too fancy. Pretty easy. If this is your first set you're painting, I mean, it is pretty easy to do these well. You know, just one color, boom, right over. And as long as you're not using too much paint, all the detail will come right. It'll shine right through. You don't need a lot of paint. That was my biggest problem, is even just on my paint board, I just glob way too much paint. And I wouldn't use anywhere near that much. So just use a little bit at a time. I think I want to get these dots a different color. Maybe gold or something. Put a light bit of gold in here just to make it look different and special. But for the most part, it looks very good with just these two colors. I really like how it came out. Next, I have some archers here. This guy, we used the Warpaint's green skin for the undead skin. We used the gunmetal gray for the helmet. I thought the silver shined too much, and the gunmetal gray gives it a little bit of a dirty look. And then, as you can see here, I used different colors for their vests, just so I could tell them apart on the board. I thought it came out pretty good. The gun here, or not the gun, the crossbow was, I can find the brown I used. I want to say it was, I believe it was the monster brown I used. And if not, it might be the leather. I think the leather is too light of a brown for that, though. I'm pretty sure it was the monster brown. And then, you know, a little bit of silver on the tip of the crossbow. The whole thing's not painted. It's not perfect. But I'm pretty happy with it. Just bits of silver in between the cloth for the chainmail underneath. I didn't even end up painting the cloth because the black primer I used. It just looks good. I just thought it was, I didn't want to overdo it. I thought it just looked alright. And to be honest, I wanted to move on to the bosses, because those are a lot bigger, a little easier to paint, because they're so big. Yeah, silver, green skin, and I can show you the primer I use. I use a black primer on every piece I paint, because when you're beginning and you mess up or you miss a spot, you know, the black doesn't really stick out. it's very easy to just look at it and say, oh, you know, that looks good, when there's just black underneath everything. If it were a white primer, you know, it'd stick out. If you missed a tiny little spot somewhere like under his leg, you'd see the bit of white, but because it's black, it works pretty well. Yeah, this is a surface primer by Vallejo. Very good black primer. I use it every time. We can get into these guys now. Just normal brown. I believe it's the leather brown for this part and the pants down here. We have the green skin for the undead parts. I believe the belt is what is the monster brown. The belt right here. I wanted it to be different from these two browns. And then again, there are bits of chainmail in between here that I lightly touched up upon. I didn't really feel confident enough to get like the tiny, super tiny holes that are here. Like tiny bits of chainmail are supposed to be sticking out, but again, I'm still pretty new, so I didn't want to mess it up. You can see I touched right in there with the silver. Silver for the breastplate there, and silver for the shield, and the helmet, and the sword as well. The silver sticks out pretty good. And I felt like the fresh silver was nice for these guys, rather than the gunmetal gray. I don't know, I just wanted them to stick out differently from the other pieces. Sometimes you want them all to match, sometimes you just want to experiment, and that's what I was doing. I definitely used a little too much paint here, but it looks alright. I don't think I'm going to repaint these. I might just touch them up eventually though. Let's look at the cleric. I went with a white cape for him, for the cleric, with a little bit on his spear there. You know, just silver for the tip of the spear, silver for the helmet and the breastplate. He's got a little chain there. I just touched up on the gold. And then I went brown for the little skirt he's got on there. And I still have to touch up the glove again. When I was first starting, I didn't want to mess it up, so I figured the black just blended in more than anything. And I was afraid to touch the face up. The face is just a black face, because faces are pretty hard to do, and every time I try to do the eyes, it doesn't come out so well. So when you're just looking at it on the game board, you know, it just looks good from far away. I definitely want to come back and touch him up though. Same thing with this guy. I just use brown on all the major parts. The leather brown and then the monster brown for the shoes to make it a little different. You know, just normal silver on the sword and the shield. Again, I didn't touch up the face. Back here there's a bunch of small stuff. He's got like a little belt and all these little bindings in the leather and stuff. Again, I didn't feel comfortable trying to touch that up when I first started, but I definitely want to come back and paint through that. Here's the next guy, the warrior. I used brass on his chainmail. I didn't want to go with the silver. I wanted him to stand out a little more. And I believe I used gunmetal gray on his helmet to keep it a darker look. I used fur brown or monster brown for up here, and then I just touched it up with a little bit of white to make it look a little more natural. And I think it looks pretty nice. I went with pure red from War Paints for the cape and his armband, and then just silver for the axe. And the same brown I used for the fur up here, I just did down here too. I believe that is the leather. I don't know what I said before, but I'm pretty sure it's the leather brown. And then just white and the pure red on the shield. It's not perfect there, it's a little messy, but I feel like that fits this guy's character. Like, he just got the shield, he painted it himself and didn't really care. Gives it a little personality in my mind. I definitely want to come back and touch this guy up though, because none of this is painted. And again, his face, I need to get better at doing faces. But he looks pretty good for the most part. And the brass, you know, not all that. Like, that's definitely some paint missing here. I don't know what I was thinking there. But some decent ideas there. I just got to go back and touch them up. And here's the one I was just really excited to paint. I used gunmetal gray on most of them. For here, for his cloth, I used the War Paint's Deep Blue. This is the blue I use for everything. It's a really nice blue. Really dark, and it still pops. For the shield, I used the gold. The Vallejo gold. For all that stuff and the dots, and the silver. Or no, maybe on the trim I used the gunmetal gray actually, because it matches his armor. And then I used the gunmetal blue for the middle part here. I was gonna go with the deep blue, but I felt like it needed to shine a little bit. And then there, for the belt, I used the leather brown. And this guy was just a lot of fun to paint because he looks really good. It doesn't take too much skill to run your brush very lightly over this and just do little dots around here. So it came out pretty good for, you know, my first set of painting. Really happy with how that came out. And that is the first set of the minis. I have all of them here. The first set. I'm going to do another video about the bosses very soon. So if you want to see how I did those, stay tuned. Thanks for watching. See ya.